Week 4 of the NFL season is right around the corner, and we have 16 games in week number 4 that I am going to be breaking down in today's video to help you guys figure out whether you should start or sit the quarterbacks in every single matchup of the week. And by the end of today's video, you should have a good idea of who should be in your lineup, because I'm not only going to tell you whether the quarterbacks are starts or sits, but I will actually tell you exactly how I have them ranked inside of my rankings on the week. Before we could get into things, though, I would like to ask that if you are new to the channel and you do end up enjoying today's video, that you please make sure to hit that subscribe button down below. So without further ado, let's get into today's quarterback start or sit decisions for week number 4 of the 2025 fantasy football season. We begin with Thursday Night Football, the Seattle Seahawks at the Arizona Cardinals. Now, Kyler at this point kind of just feels like a competent quarterback 2. In your super flex or 2 quarterback leagues, he is not a guy that I really want to heavily rely on as my quarterback 1. In a 1 quarterback league, he is yet to finish inside of the top 12. But he has also yet to go completely bust and completely screw your fantasy team over. The Seahawks defense has been buzzing, though, as of recently in a very positive manner, and have been turning quarterbacks over left and right. 5 total picks through the first 3 games of the season, and at least 1 in every single game, holding opponents to 17 or fewer points each and every single week. So I definitely do not feel great about Kyler Murray this week, but he is in the quarterback 2 range, so he is technically a start, but I would prefer to look a lot of different ways for a lot of you guys if you have some of these quarterbacks that we list as starts over on the waiver wire. For Sam Darnold, he did have his best finish yet since joining the Seahawks as the quarterback 10 last week up against the Saints. It is important to note that he scored more points in week 2 up against the Steelers, though he was the quarterback 21 in that game because the quarterbacks performed a lot better. In week number 2, Darnold looked good up against the Saints, who are a defense that just notoriously really can't stop anything this season. So we did see Darnold get pulled in that game as well as the starters because they're beating down on them so much. He only played in 68% of the snaps. He was 14 of 18 for 218 yards and 2 touchdowns. So I think Darnold could become a start-worthy asset in fantasy. But in a mid-matchup for quarterbacks here, if you want to roll him out there, go ahead. But to me, he just doesn't crack the start-worthy range for me. If you are in a 2 quarterback or a super flex league, I think you should feel fine about him as your quarterback 2. Next up, we move to Ireland, Dublin, Ireland. The cold like Minnesota Vikings going up against the Pittsburgh Steelers. Set your alarms. Wake up early, 9:30 a.m. Eastern Standard Time to watch Carson Wentz versus Aaron Rodgers in the year 2025. Carson Wentz last week did exactly what he needed to do up against the Bengals for them to win the game. He didn't turn the ball over, and he threw the ball accurately enough to cruise to a victory up against the Bengals, winning 48-10. Wentz was 14 of 20 for 173 yards and 2 touchdowns with 2 rushes for 4 yards as the quarterback 13. Ultimately, though, I don't think 15.3 points will be good enough to be a top 12 quarterback this week, even with the Steelers defense allowing the 4th most points to quarterbacks on a per game basis. I think you are just getting way too cute rolling him out there in a 1 quarterback league, in a 2 quarterback league, or a super flex league. I get it, but I definitely don't love it. Aaron Rodgers has regressed since week number 1 up against the Jets in MetLife in that revenge game. He looked like the old version of himself. He looked like Mr. Discount Double Check as he passed for 244 yards and 4 touchdowns with no interceptions. These last 2 weeks, he looks like an actual old version of himself, not the old version of himself. A old man. He looks like a fucking geriatric quarterback out there. Quarterback 24 in back-to-back showing. Shout out to Kobe with 12.4 points up against the Seahawks and 12.7 up against the Patriots. Facing the Vikings defense that allows the 30th most points to the quarterback position, I would not touch Rodgers with a 10-foot pole. Even in 2 quarterback leagues, I would be so mad if I had to start him. Next up, we move to the left hands up. Who are we? The Commanders at the Atlanta Falcons in Atlanta, the beginning of the Sunday slate at 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Now, the most recent report is that Jaden Stormy Daniels is day-to-day, and you will need to follow this situation if you're a Jaden Daniels owner or if you have Deebo Samuel or any of the other players that you wanted to start on the Commanders. If he plays, you are going to play him strictly based on the fact that, for one, you drafted him relatively highly in your fantasy draft, as well as the fact that he's put up 19 plus points in both games that he has started. Now, the Commanders are in a situation here up against the Falcons where this game could be winnable and probably would be won by Marcus Mariota. We just saw the Panthers absolutely Hadouken the Falcons last week, so it is entirely possible that Marcus Mariota would be able to win this game with ease. So if Daniels does play, I expect his rushing ability to be limited, and that would obviously not be the best, but he's still a low-end QB1, even if the matchup on paper is gross. If he is out and Mariota is in, I would roll the dice on Mariota, but he would not be a top 12 starter. He would be in that quarterback 2 range that, if you flip a couple of guys, he would end up being a sit. He was the quarterback 6 last week, though, up against the Las Vegas Raiders, and he last year played in 2 games as the starter and was a top 10 quarterback in both games. So if Mariota plays, you're playing him. You're not as confident. If Jaden Daniels plays, you're playing him as a top 12 quarterback. Michael Penix has been straight up ass over the last 2 games. Nothing but cheeks out of Mr. Penix, scoring fewer than 6 fantasy points in both showings after looking like Clark Kent and putting on the cape up against the Buccaneers before Younghoe Koo ended up sealing that game. I guess that is also true. He sealed the fate of that game. He completely sold that fucking game up the river, and then he ultimately got cut, and now he is on the Giants. Penix hasn't won a single game in the NFL where the opponent has scored more than 7 points. So things are not looking very nice at all for Michael Penix. I still do think he's a fine enough quarterback, and I think better days are ahead. But based off of him being so bad in 2 games in a row, no way I can consider starting Penix at this point. In a 1-quarterback league, I would cut him if he was my quarterback number 2. Next up, we move to game number 4 here. The New Orleans Saints at the no one circles the wagons like the Buffalo Bills. Now, Walmart Patrick Mahomes, Spencer Rattler is so bad that it is genuinely shocking. I know he did look great in week 2 up against the 49ers, and I did give him the credit where the credit was deserved. He pulled a rabbit out the hat. He had a game when pigs fly. He'll have a big game. Guess what? The fucking pigs were flying in week number 2. But ultimately, we have a long sample size at this point of games with Spencer Rattler where he has not been startable. Only 1 top 12 finish through 10 games. No need to ever start him. Even if you're in a 2-quarterback super flex league, I don't want to start him, even in a fine matchup for quarterbacks up against the Buffalo Bills. Outside of week 2, up against the Jumbo Jets, where Josh Allen got his nose smashed in and didn't really have to do anything to win that game with Justin Fields getting the concussion, Allen has been a top 5 quarterback in the other 2 games. He has yet to throw an interception this season and has been rushing 4+ times at minimum a game, giving him a solid floor. The Saints matchup is great on paper, so you're firing up Allen as a top-end, top 2 quarterback, which you are going to do regardless every single week, regardless of how good or bad the matchup is. Next up, we move to the Cleveland Browns at the Detroit Lions. Now, despite the Lions showing up in a big way, both offensively and defensively up against the Baltimore Ravens, winning 38-30 on a thriller. Shout out to Michael Jackson on Monday Night Football. Goff was the quarterback 23, going 20 of 28 for 202 yards and 1 touchdown. It seems very unlikely that Gibbs and Montgomery are going to score 2 touchdowns apiece weekly to hold off Goff from becoming a reliable low-end QB1 to high-end QB2. So I will not worry, especially since we did see Jared Goff dick down the Bears defense in week 2 as the quarterback 1, throwing not 1, not 2, not 3, not 4, but 5 touchdowns down Ben Johnson's throat. The one thing I know is the Lions are a team that won't, let off the gas typically. Normally last week we talked about, hey, I think the Packers will beat the Browns, which obviously didn't end up happening, but I thought it would be an easy victory, and they let off the gas in the second half. Jordan Love wouldn't have to do too much. Well, Jordan Love didn't do enough because they fucking lost, but Jared Goff here and the Lions, they seem like the kind of team that will beat the metaphorical dead horse of the Cleveland Browns in this game. So even if The Detroit Lions are up big. I think they're still going to be throwing the ball a decent amount, still be getting Goff his points. So to me, he feels good as a low-end QB1 to high-end QB2. Geriatric Joe Flacco did good enough to fall ass backwards into a W up against the Packers, but he wasn't good at all. He was the quarterback 32 last week and had 2 touchdowns to 4 interceptions on the season so far. We just saw the Lions defense having Lamar Jackson fearing for his life behind the line. So what do you think is going to happen with a guy that can't move at all? He might as well be having a fucking walker or a cane out there to move behind the offensive line. I have no way to play cool Joe Flacco this week. Next up, we move to the Tennessee Titans at the Houston Texans. Now, I am a Cam Ward truther as a University of Miami fan. It's all about the U, and based on what I saw out of him at college, I feel strongly that his skill translates into the NFL, but based upon what we have seen through 3 straight games outside the top 20, no one can make me a reasonable enough argument to actually start him. The team did just switch up the play calling. The play calling has been stripped away from head coach Brian Callahan and given to Bo Hard-Gree, which could end up being good news for Cam Ward going forward. But up against the Texans defense, which is a good defense, and with the first game being them kind of transitioning the power here, I would not feel comfortable at all playing Cam Ward against a defense that allows the 26th most points to quarterbacks. And this is also just DEFCON, maybe not DEFCON 1, like DEFCON 3 for Callahan. Things are not looking good. Once you switch the play calling abilities, you know shit is fucked up. CJ Stroud. Now, personally, I still think CJ Stroud has the ability to be a great quarterback at the NFL level, and I'm not going to quit on him just yet, despite him not looking great. But for fantasy purposes, I am going to wave the white flag. The offensive line is absolutely dog shit, and CJ Stroud isn't making amazing decisions either. He hasn't finished inside the top 22 at the quarterback position yet this season. This is also a bad matchup for quarterbacks, allowing the 25th most points to quarterbacks, so I would definitely look to stay clear away from CJ Stroud. Next up, we got game number 7, the Carolina Panthers at the New England Patriots. But before we break down this game in depth, as well as the rest of the games in the Week 4 slate, I would like to give you guys a quick word from our friends, our partner over at Underdog. If you're brand new to Underdog and sign up using promo code Notorious or by clicking on the link in the video description, you receive a free pick plus a first-time deposit offer of up to $1,000 in bonus funds. As well as if you play $5 in the pick'em, you will get $50 in bonus funds. How the pick'em works is incredibly simple. You pick at least 2 players, they're higher or they're lower. If both of those picks hit, you get paid. If you do multiple other picks, then the payout will be higher, but all of the picks have to hit. Make sure you guys do check out promo code Notorious or by clicking on the link in the video description. Now, Drake Iceman May has been a top 7 quarterback in back-to-back weeks, and I feel great. Shout out to Tony the Tiger about his outlook going forward. If Demario Douglas knew which way the first down was, and if Ramondre and Gibson didn't have fumbleitis, they didn't go to Diddy's house and fucking raid his lube closet before the game and attach it to their fucking gloves, then up against the Steelers, May could have had an even bigger game. But obviously, he doesn't because his teammates are fucking brain dead. The Panthers matchup has been tough for quarterbacks, but you have to whip out the microscope Bill Nye style and actually analyze why that could be the case. Sure, maybe they are a better defense than we give them credit for, but they've played Trevor Lawrence. They've played micro man, little Tykes quarterback Kyler Murray, and they have played Michael Penix, heavily inflating the stats. Shout out to Tom Brady. So I very much am interested in Drake May this week as a top 10 option. Bryce Young didn't have to do anything last week up against the Falcons as they cruised to victory with the top down last week, winning 30-0, a fat goose egg for the Falcons. Young was 16-24 for 121 yards and 2 rushes for 8 yards and a rushing touchdown. Prior to last week, he looked great up against the Cardinals in the second half. The first half was a complete and utter unmitigated disaster, but he still finished as the quarterback 8. This is a mid-range matchup for Bryce Young and the Panthers, so in my opinion, I would prefer to see him perform again before I actually start him, but if you were in a pickle and you had to start him, there are definitely worse options. Next up, we got the LA Superchargers at the New York Football Giants. Jackson Dart is expected to start for the Giants, and this will finally bring some life back to the Giants offense. I get that Russ looked good up against the Cowboys, but we have seen every single quarterback through the first 3 games of the season that has went up against the Cowboys put up huge numbers. I am excited to see what happens here, and I hope we can bring some consistency to Malik Neighbors with Jackson Dart, but in his first ever start up against a pretty good defense that allows the 22nd most points to quarterbacks, no need to get cute and play Mr. Dart. Justin Herbert, the pervert, has been very reliable to start off the season and should continue to be a very reliable asset in fantasy for an offense that has completely flipped the script compared to last season. Last year, they threw the ball 55.9% of the time. This year, they're throwing the ball at 59.9% of the time. And honestly, I wouldn't be shocked if that number was higher by the end of the season. The Giants are a top 10 matchup for quarterbacks, so Herbert feels like a nice condom wrap around your fantasy team this week as a top 6 option. Moving next to the Philadelphia Eagles at the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Now, last week up against the LA Rams, the game started off looking like a repeat of the Chiefs game. The offense didn't do much, and honestly, the game was looking worse than the Chiefs game because it was looking out of hand. The Rams were smashing them all for the first 2 quarters, and Jalen Hurts was looking not very nice. Shit was looking wrong. It was looking bad. But in the second half, Hurts turned things up to the maximum. And by game's end, he threw the ball 32 times with 21 completions for 226 passing yards. And not 1, not 2, but 3 touchdowns with 0 interceptions, as well as 9 rushes for 40 yards and a rushing touchdown. 4 rushing touchdowns through the first 3 games of the season. In a top 10 matchup for a quarterback, Hurts is a top 5 option. Baker Mayfield is definitely downgraded by the loss of Mike Evans. If Chris Godwin was able to miraculously come back, then that would be huge for the outlook of Baker while Mike Evans is out, but I also would not count on that, right? At this point on Tuesday. Maybe we fast forward to Friday and it's looking like it's Friday, right? And it's looking all good. It's all happy. Yay. Fucking Chris Godwin's back. But as of right now, I would really temper my expectations on that. Egbuka does look amazing, so Baker should be fine to me. Ranking him as a super high-end option this week, though, doesn't really make too much sense because the offensive line is banged up. Mike Evans isn't there. General Sterling Shepard might be the wide receiver 2 on this team. So Baker was the QB8 last week up against the Jets. So in a below average matchup up against the Eagles, he's more of a high-end quarterback too, but based on the fact that you drafted him where you did, you probably are still just going to roll the dice and start him. Next up, we got the Indianapolis Colts at the Los Angeles Rams Sunday, 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Daniel Indiana Jones has me feeling real nicey, and it also has me feeling like it's Freaky Friday, and him and Patrick Mahomes have switched bodies. 3 top 12 performances in a row with 3 rushing touchdowns on the season in a matchup that has the highest projected point total on the week according to Vegas lines at 49.5. You have to continue to ride Daniel Jones. Pause. His hot streak is incredible as a mid-range quarterback 1. Now, Stafford has looked great out there through the first 3 weeks of the season, but being great in real life versus being great in fantasy are 2 completely different things. Stafford plays at a high level and is able to elevate the Rams to winning a ton of games this season, but with 0 rushing upside and him needing to throw 3+ passing touchdowns and probably 300+ passing yards to be a top 12 guy, with how much quarterbacks are running, I am just not that interested in starting him. Now, if there was ever a game for him to be a high-end option, it would be this week in a high-scoring game environment. But the same thing could have been said last week up against the Eagles, where he scored just 14.8 points. So while I would be perfectly fine with Stafford being my quarterback 2 in a super flex league, in a 1-quarterback league, I would prefer other options. Next up, we move to the Jacksonville Jaguars. Duval at the San Francisco 49ers. Now, not enough people talk about how much of a colossal bust Trevor Lawrence is. This dude is as big of a bust as yours if you were taking zinc for about a month. T-Law looks terrible, making awful decisions, and his star-studded wide receiver core can't even save him. He pulled a rabbit out the hat as the quarterback 11 up against a dog shit Bengals defense in week 2. But outside of that, he has failed to score more than 12 fantasy points in a bad matchup up against the 49ers defense. For quarterbacks, I don't expect T-Law to do some wizardly shit here. Shout out to Alex Russo and become a start-worthy option. Clear sit, and I would be disappointed if I had to rely on him in a 2-quarterback or super flex league. Big cock Brock Purdy. From my research, it would appear that he will suit up this week. Now, obviously, this is not a take that I would take out the mortgage and bet it on Brock Purdy, but the feeling I'm getting right now from reading through the tea leaves, a little birdie is tweeting in my ear and is telling me that it feels more like Brock Purdy will play, especially when Mac Jones re-aggravated his PCL, which will probably push Brock Purdy closer to actually coming back. The matchup here up against the Jaguars is middle of the road for a quarterback. No Kittle this week, and hopefully Juwan Jennings returns for Brock Purdy. Since Brock probably will be banged up and starting, I would prefer not to have to rely on him to be a top 12 guy, so I'm not going to rank him there, but he is a high-end quarterback too. Next up, we got game number 12, the potential game of the week, a battle of two 1-2 teams, the Baltimore Ravens at the Kansas City Chiefs. I said this in the running back video, so I'm not going to completely rehash what I said, but if you told me at the start of the season that by week 4, one of these two teams will be 1-3 after the end of week 4, I would have called you crazy, but that is exactly the scenario we are in this week. Despite Lamar Jackson having to run like a chicken with his head cut off last week up against the Lions, getting sacked 7 times, and genuinely, it felt like he was pressured on every single drop back, he still finished as a top 3 quarterback up against the Lions with 21 completions on 27 attempts for 288 yards and 3 touchdowns with 7 rushes for 35 yards. The matchup up against the Chiefs is slightly below average for quarterbacks, but ultimately, you are going to start Lamar Jackson up against any team. It's just like with Josh Allen. You are going to fire him up with supreme confidence every single week. And based upon how Lamar Jackson has looked, I got him as a clear top 2 quarterback on the week. Now, prior to last week, Patrick Mahomes was a top 6 quarterback in the first 2 games of the season. Last week up against the Giants, the offense didn't have to do much as they were in control of the whole game. The offense didn't need to go balls to the wall here. The offense didn't need to lay the pipe down. Shout out to Mario and Luigi, right? They didn't have to have a big game offensively to win. This week, though, going from the Giants to the Baltimore Ravens, there's a big gap in talent, right? Even though the Ravens are potentially on a path to finishing 1-3 through the first 4 games, that is a great team. That is a great offense that should push this into being a very high-scoring game. And with a defense in the Ravens that allows the 5th most points to quarterbacks on a weekly basis, the Mahomes bounce back here fears inevitable as a top 8 quarterback. Next up, we got the Chicago Bears at the Las Vegas Raiders in Viva Las Vegas. Caleb Williams has the 2nd best fantasy showing of his career last week up against the Cowboys. But like we discussed earlier, basically, anyone could go out there and hit the Cowboys defense from the back. How you like that? Going 19 of 28 for 298 yards, almost 300 yards, too short. Shout out to Leonidas, and 4 touchdowns, as well as 5 rushes for 12 yards. So far, the season has been good. 3 straight 18-plus point showings. So while it may be a small 3-game sample size in the scheme of his career, I feel great about the direction that the Bears offense is going and feel great about Caleb here in an above average matchup for quarterbacks as a quarterback 1 inside of the top 10. Geno played great in the 4th quarter last week, and Trey Tucker absolutely suplexed the Commanders defense, even though they got smacked in that game. But it is what it is. Geno still played well. He was on his Blake Bortles. The garbage time points count all the same, baby. Geno was the quarterback 4, which hurt because I played against him last week, and he absolutely ran a train on me. 29 targets for 19 completions and 289 yards, as well as 3 touchdowns. I don't expect most games out of Geno to be this good, and for him to most of the time be in the quarterback like 10 to 16-ish range. This week up against a Bears defense, though, that allows the 3rd most points to the quarterbacks, he could flirt with a top 5 finish again. I got him as a high-end quarterback, too. Next up, we move to, cause you waited all day for Sunday night, the return of Micah Parsons to Jerry's World in Dallas, the Green Bay Packers at the Dallas Cowboys. Jordan Love has yet to have a top 12 finish yet this season. Last week, I expected Jordan Love to be disappointing because I expected it to be an easy game. Jordan Love wouldn't have to do much. They'd fall ass backwards into a win, and I was not even remotely prepared for what was going to happen there, and I don't even think Browns fans expected them to win that game. Love was the quarterback, 26, 18 completions on 25 attempts for 183 yards and a touchdown with 1 INT and 4 rushes for 18 yards. Brighter days are ahead, though, in my opinion, especially when you have the easiest matchup for a quarterback. The Cowboys defense have gotten bukake'd by Jalen Hurts, Mr. Unlimited Russell Wilson, and last week, Caleb Williams. Love has a cakewalk path towards a top 12 finish this week, and that is why I have him ranked as a low-end quarterback 1. Losing CeeDee Lamb is a humongous blow to the Cowboys offense. Good thing for Dak, though, CeeDee Lamb will eventually come back. And he's not done for the season, so, in better matchups, Dak will still be start-worthy, but up against the Packers defense that allows the 31st most points to quarterbacks on a weekly basis, I'm not doing it. I think with a full-strength Cowboys offense, you might be able to roll the dice and start Dak Prescott, right? Because, you could just talk into CeeDee Lamb just miraculously doing all this crazy shit, and it elevates Dak Prescott. So sure, if you have to start him in a 2-quarterback league, go ahead. But in a 1-quarterback league, he definitely deserves to be on the bench. Next up, we move to the first of 2 Monday Night Football games. Because why have one shitty Monday Night Football game when you can get 2? Monday Night Football game, 7:15 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. The New York Jumbo Jets at my Miami Dolphins in the Miami Gardens. Dale, shout out to Pitbull. Now, as of Tuesday, things feel up in the air on Justin Fields' availability for this game due to the concussion he suffered in week 2. Now, if he starts, I'm going to start him. The Dolphins defense is straight up Swiss cheese and allows the second most points to quarterbacks on a per game basis. I get that Justin Fields was terrible prior to getting hurt up against the Buffalo Bills, but in that game, he probably would have backdoored a garbage time touchdown. I get it's not definitive. He 100% is not guaranteed to have gotten that backdoor touchdown to kind of save his awful fucking day. But Tyrod scored, so I think that Fields would have been able to do so. Either way, though, we're not going to spend too much time talking about that. If he plays up against the Dolphins, with how bad the Dolphins defense is, I think that Justin Fields should be started. Now, I understand that he's risky, and he's going to be risky every single week. You're going to start him, and you're going to feel a pit in the bottom of your stomach that says, fuck, why did I start Justin Fields? But he genuinely has the quarterback 1 upside in this game, but he's in the QB2 range. If Tyrod plays, he looked all right enough last week to be considered to be start-worthy. He actually played well up against the Buccaneers, but I will note that I actually don't think Tyrod could do that twice in a row. So even in a wet dream matchup, I probably would stay away. At the end of the day, I will always go to bat for the Dolphins quarterback, and I will always ride into every game as a Dolphins fan, expecting my quarterback to figure it out. In my own head, I can live in this delusional state where Tua's going to turn back to Tuscaloosa Tua back at Alabama at any point and play crazy. But when I am on here, I have to be real. I can't live in my own delusional state, right? Tua looked good up against the Bills on Thursday Night Football until he didn't, where he threw the ball straight to Terrell Bernard. Straight at him. Catch, motherfucker. That's what he yelled as he threw the ball right to him. Unbelievable. Unbelievable. That was sickening to watch, and it genuinely ripped my heart out. Tua played well up against the Patriots the week before. But you know what else he did in that game? Threw the ball straight to the defense, earning his nickname, Tua, turn of the ball over. Here, against the Jets, if we lose this game, I don't know how I'm going to have to show my face on here again. Losing to the Jets would be an absolute disgrace. Okay? Now, I'm still going to come back on here and make the fucking videos because I love doing it, but maybe I'll have to wear a paper bag next week. That is how embarrassing it would be for me to lose to the Jets, especially at home in Miami. Tua is a lot like Stafford. If Stafford was worse, okay? If Stafford smoked crack before the fucking game. And what I mean by that is he has virtually zero rushing upside and has to throw 300 plus yards and 3 touchdowns to be good enough to be considered as a start-worthy guy inside the top 12. The Jets are a top 12 defense in terms of points allowed to a quarterback, so maybe this is going to be the big game out of Tua, and I'm going to be hitting the fucking gritty in my room watching this game. But I don't trust him at all, so I'm not starting him. Final game here, the Cincinnati Bengals at the Denver Broncos, 8:15 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Get your sleep in early on Monday. Don't need to watch these things, if I'm being honest with you. Now, last week, I talked up Jake Browning because he played well in relief of Burrow against the Jaguars, and he had a history in 2023 of a bunch of really solid games, putting up respectable games when Burrow was hurt. So to me, it was fine to start him last week. But that was just blatantly wrong. The Vikings completely shut the door on that narrative. Browning looks in need of a map because the dude was fucking lost. Quarterback 29 with 19 completions on 27 attempts for 140 yards and a touchdown with 2 picks as the Vikings beat down on the Bengals. Now, that was a tough matchup up against the Vikings. They locked down quarterbacks this season, so I am optimistic for the future. I don't think we entirely fold on the Bengals, but it's definitely scary, especially up against the Broncos. They're one of the best defenses in the NFL. So if there was that awakening of Jake Browning for him to turn back the clock to 2023, I don't think it would be this week. So I'm sitting him. Bo Nix has definitely been a disappointment based on his ADP so far. He did look phenomenal week 2 up against the Colts as the quarterback 12, but really cooled off up against the Chargers in SoFi. This week, he gets a clear bounce back spot up against the Bengals defense that made Carson Wentz look good. So not a clear top 10 guy by any means, but he is a low-end quarterback one with a very high floor. So thank you guys all so much for watching. If you ended up enjoying today's video, make sure you guys hit that subscribe button down below. Like it owes you some money. Leave a like on today's video. It would help me out a ton. If you want to follow me on Twitter or X, please do so at NotoriousFantasy. Check out one of these videos on your screen if you haven't seen them already. I love you a long time. Have a great one. As always, goodbye.